Hey, Steve Saretsky here. Just going to put together a quick video. Did a post on Vancouver condo market update for November. I generally haven't, done a report solely on condos, but obviously working downtown, a lot of my clients here, so I figured I would basically summarize all the sub areas. So looking at downtown, Yaletown, West End, Kitsilano, False Creek, and then just Vancouver West as a whole. I've talked about it before. Obviously, sales have dropped off more so, and everyone seems to want to talk about the detached market. Sales having dropped 52% year over year in the detached, and then townhouses dropping 40% year over year. So everybody going, there's this assumption out there that Vancouver condos are sort of safe. Well, I certainly agree that they're always going to be prized possessions. I don't think they're exempt from a correction. I think that we're already seeing a lot of signs that are showing a correction in the downtown condo market, Vancouver condo market. So basically, Vancouver West condos sales year over year are down 35%. So sales are down 35%, which is obviously quite significant. Obviously, we're coming off a record year, but if you actually look at it on the 10-year average, Vancouver condo sales are down. I'm talking about Vancouver West condo sales. I'm not really focusing on the east side. Vancouver West condo sales are down 13%. Below the 10-year average, so 35% year over year, 13% below the 10-year average. So it's obviously significant. There's something going on here in terms of prices. If you actually look at, so I'm looking at the inventory every single day. So if you actually look at, say, a comparable sale that, something that sold back in the peak in June, if you actually look at it today, for the most part, they're going about 5% below what they would have sold for in June. So it's not much, but obviously 5% counts in the grand scheme of things. I think that 5% is interesting, considering that we're actually still what I would consider, and the board would consider, a seller's market. Certainly, what I'm seeing here, things are still selling relatively quickly. For the most part, though, that isn't because there's a lot of demand. Obviously, you've seen that with a 35% reduction in sales. It's actually from it's actually right now at record low inventories, even lower than last year. So I think that's actually what's keeping prices relatively stable. It's what's causing properties to still sell quickly. There's not a whole lot of multiple offers, but they are still happening. And I think the primary reason is because although there may not be a whole lot of buyers out there, as seen in the sales numbers, there's really no inventory. So occasionally you're still having buyers bump into each other and competing. So that's obviously keeping prices relatively firm. But like I said, you're seeing 5%. I think the MLS benchmark is showing roughly about 3% since June. I'm seeing about 5%, but again, the benchmark kind of varies in certain areas. We're seeing a little bit more of a correction in Yaletown, which is one of the areas that really took off in the west side here for condos. False Creek also really took off. The MLS benchmark is now showing since June. It's showing a 9% price decline since June. So False Creek is actually, based on what I've looked at the numbers, that seems to be taking actually the biggest hit right now in kind of all the areas. But for the most part, most of those areas on the west side, they all kind of work in tandem, so there's not really one that sticks out. Maybe one moves slightly more than the other. Like I said, Yaletown took off a lot, so did False Creek. I think we're seeing those are the two ones that, to me, are really starting to stand out as, okay, these ones seem to be correcting a little bit more than, say, downtown or Kitsilano sort of thing. So that's kind of where we're at. I think that Vancouver condos, obviously, in the long run, are always going to be very prized possessions. I think that a lot of people working downtown, everybody wants to be near the city. It's obviously very friendly to foreign investors or just investors in general. It's Vancouver. It's very desirable. So I think that in terms of a correction, if you want to look at Vancouver, okay, how much is Vancouver going to correct? Nobody really knows, but I don't think that Vancouver is going to correct to the extent that, say, Richmond condos will, or Abbotsford condos. I've talked about Abbotsford condos before, how, prices were stagnant for years and years and years. They were actually lost a lot of value, and then all of a sudden this year they perked up to 31% or something like that. So I think those areas where you have a lot more room to build. It's obviously a lot more locals. I think it's a lot of locals that are likely overextended. So I think those markets, those condo markets, will correct a lot more than Vancouver's will. But I certainly think to go ahead and say that Vancouver will not correct or it isn't correcting is definitely not true. Like I said, sales down 35% year over year. You're starting to see prices reflecting the benchmark now. Again, from my comps, I'm seeing 5%. Record low inventories. I think once nobody's selling right now in December, I think the inventory starts to pick up again in January and February. I don't know if the demand will be there to meet it. Obviously, like I said, I keep talking about it, but you're seeing a 35% reduction in sales. So I think once that inventory comes on, I think that will put a little more pressure on prices to come down. So I think that is when you'll start to see it. And like I said, I think that right now, what's really keeping prices relatively firm is record low supply. And again, that supply is coming. Sellers will be selling, maybe not to the extent that we've seen several years ago, but certainly, the levels will come up in the new year. We have a lot more new construction that's starting to near completion, so that could help as well. And again, as the demand shifts and cools, sellers will naturally get their homes back on the market. So, and we'll start to enter, I believe, into a more balanced market. It's certainly still in a seller's market, but it's slowly shifting to that balanced market. And like I said, I think the only thing that's keeping it from that is the low inventory, because certainly the sales are not there from the buying end. So, alrighty, hope that helped.